Hi, I'm Jane Storero. I'm the other Jane in the group. And when we were originally putting this together and coming up with ideas for speakers, there was yet a third Jane that we thought of, and we said, no, we couldn't have all Janes. And then one other person, because otherwise you'd have to change your name to Jane, and that would be tough. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was some of the legal issues that are facing businesses and entrepreneurs today, given the economic environment that the country is in. And one of the big issues is in the area of labor issues. There are a significant number of labor issues that have cropped up in this economic environment. Jane alluded to one earlier, making payroll. Companies are taking longer to pay. Lots of companies are experiencing cash flow issues. And as a lawyer, I'm getting confronted with more and more companies talking about the legal issues that come up with doing things like not being able to pay your employees and what the legal ramifications of that are. Also, lots of companies, because of these issues, are facing layoffs and staff reductions. And there's a whole host of laws that apply to these kinds of things that are not very pleasant to deal with, and that companies are having to deal with in this economic environment. And there are all sorts of laws that get triggered when companies have layoffs, depending on how many people are getting laid off and that kind of thing. Perhaps the most troubling area of legal issues that companies are facing today is compliance with their loan documents or credit facilities that they may have with banks or other types of financial institutions. And as you probably know, when a company enters into a credit facility or some sort of loan agreement with a bank, there are all sorts of financial covenants and ratios that they have to meet at the end of specified periods in order to maintain compliance with that loan agreement. And given the economic environment where revenues are down, profits are down for many companies for a whole host of reasons, many companies are having a hard time maintaining compliance with those types of agreements, and so they are forced to deal with in a whole variety of ways, including obtaining waivers from banks and things like that. As Jane alluded to earlier, one of the issues that entrepreneurs always face, and in my opinion is the most problematic area for entrepreneurs, and that's in the area of raising capital. In this market, raising capital is perhaps more difficult than it normally is, not just for entrepreneurs starting businesses, but also for existing businesses, because they may have had an existing line of credit which now they can't advance any more funds because they're not meeting some of the covenants in that agreement, or it may be that that company never needed a line of credit before. Now they're experiencing cash flow issues because some of their customers are paying at a slower rate, and they're going to banks and looking to get a loan or a line of credit, and that money is just not available to a lot of companies. I work with a lot of banks in the region, and when you hear people saying that banks aren't lending, what it means in most cases is that they're saving the money that they have designated to lend out for their best of existing customers. So in that environment, it's extremely difficult for companies, smaller companies or entrepreneurs who have perhaps never had a line of credit before, to be able to get that line of credit from a bank at this point in time. So they need to look to alternative sources of financing, which may or may not be available in this particular market. Also, the public credit markets have really not been open since sometime last year. So even public companies like Jane's former company, who would have been able to go out and raise debt in the public market, that is really not something that's readily available at this point, perhaps only to the very largest and biggest companies in the country. So that's another issue that we see out there. And one of the things that I noticed when I was looking for some statistics to talk about at this seminar, I came across the fact that when you have challenging economic times like this, you see that fewer businesses are started. And that's troubling because, economic development and new businesses starting is really at the heart of what drives our economy. And one of the reasons that you don't see a lot of people starting businesses in this economy is because entrepreneurs are sometimes reluctant to leave their existing job. As Jane said, she had a lot of security working at IBM, and she got a steady paycheck every pay period. And a lot of folks are nervous about leaving that in this environment to start something new when times are so uncertain. Another problem is that the availability of capital and the ability to raise capital makes it more difficult to get new businesses off the ground. Also, statistically, if you look at all the economic downturns that have been tracked since the Great Depression in the 30s, you'll see that that more companies fail. Fewer companies are started, and more companies fail in recessionary periods. But the good news, I think, for Jane, who's starting her business, and any of you out there that are thinking of doing the same, is that even though fewer companies are formed, what we've seen over time is that those are much more quality companies that are started in these periods. And just to give you some examples of companies that are household names that you know that have been started in periods of recession throughout history, you have Microsoft, Southwest Airlines, Knoll, Allstate, Morgan Stanley, Genentech. These are all companies who, I'm sure you've heard of at least one or two, that were started in a recessionary period and were able to be successful. I think one of the things that was an interesting statistic is that for women entrepreneurs is women entrepreneurs who tend to have smaller businesses seem to fare better in recessionary periods than other businesses as a whole. And there was a recent study by Norvo, which is an organization of women business owners, and one of the things that it showed was although women-owned businesses are facing the same kinds of economic issues as other businesses, some of which I alluded to earlier in the legal arena, a lot of these businesses are smaller and they're better positioned to weather the storm, if you will, than some of the larger businesses that you read about in the paper on a daily basis who are having significant issues in this economy. This study indicated that over half the women business owners that responded indicated, for example, that they had no current plans to reduce their workforce. And that's a very promising statistic given the jobless rate is extremely high. And it's probably the highest that it's been in at least 16 years. Also, this study showed that at least 25% of these women businesses surveyed indicated that they were going to add jobs in 2009. So that's good news for all of you that will be graduating in June and out there looking for jobs in this market. And I think that what we've seen is that because a lot of the women-owned businesses tend to be smaller, that they're much better positioned in this period of economic downturn. And that's probably true of a lot of other entrepreneurial businesses as well that are smaller, they won't run very lean, and they're not experiencing some of the issues that we see with the large companies that we value.